I'm so excited to welcome Annie Lalla. Although when you signed up, you had another name, but you really go by Annie Lalla in all circumstances, right?
Yeah, my name's Annie Lalla, and I consider myself a cartographer of love.
Which is so magnificent. And I think one of the things that I appreciate about you, this is our first actual conversation, as we were just saying, although I've been in rooms with you and followed you online and read what you've written and know lots of people who've worked with you, but it's our first actual conversation. And one of the things that just made me so excited to speak with you here on the podcast is the way that you blend depth and whimsy. There are plenty of superficial, whimsical, charming relationship coaches. There are very few who are like really deep with a lot of content. And I just think you blend both so magnificently.
Oh, thank you, sweetheart. Delight is one of my highest values. So I like to delight the world. I like to seek delight. And so I'm often, when I'm working with individuals or couples, I'm trying to remind them how to find the delight in their own experience and in their partner. And so I love being a delight. And I've really mapped, as a cartographer, I've really mapped the sacred and invisible space between two people's hearts. And I think everything important in reality happens in that sacred space between two people's hearts. And so as a cartographer, I've been mapping the terrain of emotions and love and conflict itself. So I'm happy to dive in and speak to whatever feels pertinent to your tribe.
Okay, that sounds wonderful. And I just want to share that the cartographer of love, there's something like most of the things you do, which also has so much full spectrum energy in it because it's sort of an ancient image and yet it feels very edgy. And yeah, I just think that's the way to receive what you share is kind of the ancient wisdom and the edgy exploration. And in that, there's something for anyone who actually wants to learn and grow and open to new solutions. I do want to read your proper bio. I could have let it go, but I just enjoy it. It also brings me delight. So here we go. As a cutting edge relationship coach, Annie maps the complexities of romance and upgrades emotional skills. Specializing in love, sex, and conflict resolution, Annie's created a suite of practical tools that resolve unconscious relational patterns, attachment wounds, and recurrent conflict. I love that you talk about resolving attachment wounds. That's a little pet peeve I have about the whole attachment paradigm and industry around it, that it's a description of what happens, but it's very rare that there's actually a solution out of the quagmire. And there is something helpful in understanding what's going on, but that is not enough to change it. So I just love how you've said that. Annie helps clients cultivate relational esteem and develop collaboration skills that go beyond power struggles, shame, or blame. She is a fierce stand for creating intimate relationships that last a lifetime. And with that, I would love to dive in. First, I think painting the picture that so many listeners can recognize. You are working hard, doing important things, high stress, high impact. You really need a lot of yourself to do it well. Your spouse is in the same situation. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 kids at home, a house to maintain, au pairs, childcare, extracurricular, lovely vacations to plan. The laundry needs to get done. Somebody calls in sick. They're just the gardener, like taxes. You have to study for your next professional exam. There just is so much going on. And most of those things, if you don't attend to them, they kind of, in either big or small ways, blow up in your face. But your relationship can tolerate a lot and very often is left to the side because other things are calling for you. And then the
Well,
intimacy.
I want to just say, I don't think it's actually because other things are calling. I think that's
Okay.
the presenting narrative.
Well, let's go right in there. I just really wanted to paint the landscape. So for the so many of you who recognize yourselves in this, this is the territory we're going to engage in. And I'm not even really going to start with a question, but why don't you map what are the coordinates you perceive on the map that I've just painted?
Well, first of all, when we say, oh, we get busy and distracted and the kids and the groceries and, oh, we don't have time to hang out with our partner, that's the presenting issue. But as someone who's been studying the terrors of intimacy and the low level unease and discomfort that every human being has when they reach certain levels of connection with another human being. I've noticed that the distraction and the busy and the, oh, I got the kids and I got to pick up the groceries are all actually ways that we use as individuals to keep deeper intimacy at bay. Why? We say we want connection. We say we want intimacy. We complain about it to our friends. But deep down inside, both partners in a relationship usually unconsciously collaborate, conspire, collude to keep a certain level of intimacy and non intimacy in place so that they don't have to ever press their consciousness into higher levels of sensation that they've just not mapped before, that are unfamiliar. Whatever levels of intimacy you got used to as a kid with your parents becomes coded as what love is. And anything more than that feels like a little bit too heavy barbell at the gym. And what my job is, as someone who's brought in service of connection and intimacy in a deeper relationship, is to help be a coach and a trainer and support each individual in doing one more rep on that heavy barbell, just one more. So we build the muscles. What muscles? Emotional muscles. You know, in performance athletics, the way they measure fitness in an athlete is how quickly their speed of recovery is. The speed of recovery of their heart beating really fast. How does it come back down to rest? The speed of recovery of a little ripped wound, anything that's hurt and mends. Speed of recovery is the indication of fitness, physical fitness. Now, in emotional relationship domain, emotional fitness is indicated by speed of recovery, how quickly you come back from an upset, from a fight, from a dysregulated moment where you feel scared or sad or upset or angry. How quickly you come back to your baseline, to grounded and regulated, is your emotional fitness. And so I see myself as a fitness trainer in the emotional gym, helping my clients build their emotional muscles so they can tolerate and be with wider and wider and deeper levels of sensation, which allows for more and more connection. Because whether it's pain or pleasure, to the physiology, it's actually just sensation. And the more sensation you can tolerate in your body, the wider the swath and the realm of emotional experience you can have, and the deeper the love. So,
Will you just, for listeners who might have this question, distinguish emotion and sensation?
yes. Well, I actually think of feelings. The definition I have for feelings that make the most explanatory and predictive power is a feeling is a matrix of physical sensations in the body. Okay. And I heard that from Dr. Wyatt Woodsmall. He's a mentor of my husband's. And he said, feelings are a matrix of physical sensations in the body. Okay. So you're hungry. You don't calculate you're hungry by how much food you ate and what time of day. You don't calculate that you're thirsty by calculating how much tea you drank. You literally feel your belly rumble. You feel your mouth dry or you get a headache. There's physiological indicators that show if you're hungry, if you're thirsty, if you're tired, if you have an itch. And all of those early sensations or feelings that we developed, in our evolutionary history have become refined over the years to these more subtler things we'll call emotions. And so when you're sad, the way you know you're sad, if you do at all, is because you've learned to track the map internally of your physiology. And every time I'm sad, I get a tightness in my throat. Whenever you're sad, there will be a physiological shape that is a counterpart to sadness. You have one for mad, angry, sad, and they're different. They're invisible maps that no one else can see. But my sadness might be in my throat, yours might be in your jaw or
I
your shoulder.
have this ridiculously deep cough that it doesn't come with all sadness, but it comes with intense sadness.
Got it. Okay, so it's great. So you're tracking that. And I think it's our job as humans to become internal cartographers of our soma, of our physiology. Because if you realize that feelings are sensations in the body, and most humans are very busy avoiding the sensations in their body because they don't know how to be with the intensity. And so most of our feelings that people are feeling in the world are not actual feelings in the body. They're the story about the feelings, which is a narrative of explanations, justifications, reasons, shame, blame, make wrong, either shaming yourself or shaming another. But it always involves narrative explanation. Most people do not know yet how to turn inward when they're upset, scared, overwhelmed, angry, and be with the sensations in their body, which I think the sensations are really their unconscious mind, their wise higher self, trying to hand them a piece of data. But the unconscious mind is precognitive and prelingual. So it can't communicate in concepts or language. The unconscious mind communicates through the only language it knows, which is sensations. And so even as a little child, before they have language or concepts, they have sensations. And that's how we know if they're hungry or tired. And so there is our wise inner unconscious mind trying to hand a message that leads to our growth and development and success up to the conscious mind. And the only way it does that is through sensation. So when I'm sad, I scan my body and I'm like, where is my sadness? Now, everything in my mind wants to talk about why I'm sad, who's made me sad, why my sadness makes sense. I want to escape from the sensations, dissociate into a custom crafted escape hatch about the feeling. That's what 99% of people do, including myself. And so my job is to help my clients and myself bring the attention back to the sensations in the body where the important message lives. So all feelings come in a form of a wave, like a sine curve, and the feelings come online, the sensations get stronger and stronger. And then when it gets a little bit too intense for us, we pop off the graph, like we pop off the wave and we spin out in a dissociated narrative state. And we can hold on to a feeling for a day, a week, a month, 20 years, 40 years, because we've never felt safe enough to stay with the feeling all the way to the peak and crest to the completed feeling cycle, which is the only way to get the nugget of genius that your unconscious mind is trying to hand you in service of your success. So feeling our feelings is pretty much the most important skill that humans don't know how to do, but most need to learn. And so that's a big part of my work, is always helping my clients come back from their blame, shame, explanation narrative, come back into their body, feel the sensations, and see what is it trying to tell them. Because every feeling is trying to give you an indicated action to upgrade your life. But if you don't listen to the feeling, you'll keep running the same old pattern and you won't get the upgrade.
With more and more frustration. So, will you take what you've just said and steer it
Yes.
towards the map I painted at the
Okay, great.
beginning?
Now, so
Yeah.
we've got this couple and they're in love with each other, which means they want to build a life together and they want to unfurl and develop their emotional muscles and their intimacy skills together. Their conscious mind wants that. That's why they got married. That's why they're living together. Their unconscious mind, though, might have some fear, some terror, some trepidation around it. And as we
Right.
all know, our conscious mind might have our foot on the gas. Let's go. Let's have connection. Let's be married. And our unconscious mind might have its foot on the brake. Whoa, 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 wait a minute. I don't know. I don't want to tell them everything. I don't want them to see straight through to the center of my soul because then I don't have any guard, any like protection, and I could get hurt. Now, when you have a conscious and unconscious dilemma like that, the unconscious mind is like 80, 90+% of what runs your life. So if you have your conscious mind is on the gas, your unconscious mind is on the brake, you can see how you'd be stuck. And that's what I notice most couples are struggling with is this double bind that they're not aware of. The double
Mm.
bind goes something like this. I really want to connect and be all intimate and, in love. That's their conscious mind, but their behavior is otherwise. When their partner's looking at them or hugging them, they're like, oh, I like this feeling. But then they look away from the gaze. They end the hug earlier. When the partner's giving them a compliment, instead of soaking it all in, they go, yeah, thanks, honey. And they go back to the dishes. All of these are subtle indications of this terror that the poor unconscious mind is guarding against. Now, those terrors and those beliefs are often based on past experience that may no longer be applicable. So a lot of times we have to update the beliefs. But I really feel that we need to honor that terror. I like to explore what is underneath the hesitation to linger longer in a hug, to be the last one to pull away from a kiss or a hug. Like I'm always watching and I always ask my clients, who's the one that initiates sexual connection? Who's the one that initiates physical affection? Who's the one that initiates compliments? Who pulls away from it first? And it's really important to notice, where do we pull away from connection unconsciously? Because we're busy or because we have something to do, but really it's because we've hit an upper limit of the sensation is foreign. It's a little too close for comfort. I'm not sure what to do with it. Quick, distract myself with the dishes. So tying it back into what's going on with these couples, the first thing is I don't blame busyness ever for lack of intimacy, because here's the deal. All a couple needs is 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes of like, let's just look into each other's eyes. Let me hug you. Let me be present with you. 5 full fat minutes of no distraction and just pouring love into each other. And you can ride on that for the whole day. So, this idea that I don't have time or I can't make space, I don't really buy it. Because if you could do that 5 minutes, I don't think there'd be any, oh, you don't spend time with me. It's not the number of minutes. What I've realized, whether it's parenting to children or couples together, it's not the number of minutes, it's the quality of presence that you bring. If you can only bring 5 minutes for the entire day with your kid or your partner, but you bring all your attention, let go of everything else, and that's work. You have to kind of do internal breathing and grounding and work to keep coming back to this moment that you're sharing with another human. And remember, this moment, the now, it's the only room that exists in the universe where you can commune with another human being. There's no other place. So if you're not in the now and they're not in the now, communion is not happening. So all you can do is make sure you're doing your part, right? That you're bringing yourself to the now. And basically that means being in your body, being in your five senses, attuning to your sensations, being connected to your feelings. And so for starters, you only need 5 minutes or maybe 2-3 minutes throughout the day where you pour all your attention in. So that's one thing I'd recommend as a tactical experiment to try is just try busy husband, busy wife. Just try leading. Hey, I want to just drop in for 3 minutes and I'm just going to sit with you. I'm just going to give you a hand massage. I'm just going to like look at you. I'm just going to hold you in a hug. 3 minutes as an investment to the whole marriage. And when the kids can feel that mom and dad, even if they're busy, are connected, they're both feeling the invisible cord of connection that's always there. I feel like when both parents are in that state, they're like two ends of a hammock, and the kids get to be in the hammock and rock when the parents are solid, standing on their own 2 feet, grounded, regulated, but also in collaborative communion. That's the ideal situation for a kid. So that 3-5 minutes is literally an investment in the entire family system, the field.
Yeah, it's just beautiful how you paint it, and I enjoy hearing how you started with 5 minutes and then you said you can do three because really this sounds so simple, and I'm sure in your marriage and mine it is, but for someone who's never done something like this for any amount of time, start with 30 seconds. It just start with 10 seconds. The point is, it's like binary. If you do it for a little while, then like you've just said, you can just dial up like you would dial up weight at the gym. It's just
Yeah.
getting started. So
Yeah.
there's nobody who is listening to this podcast who does not have 15 seconds that
15
they
seconds.
can put their attention on their spouse and invite their spouse to do the same.
Yeah, exactly. 15 seconds. I bet you there's not many couples that even they might be making dinner together and sitting together reading the paper, but actual everything put away and just like, I'm just with you for 10 seconds, 15
Totally.
seconds. It feels like a nourishing gift. And here's the deal. Whatever comes up as a discomfort, as a worry, as a trepidation, as a, oh, I'm not sure about that, whatever comes up in your body when you attempt to do that, that is your shadow. That is your
That is
development
your
path.
shadow and your revelation.
Yeah. And your opportunity.
Yes, yes, yes.
Anything that keeps you from being present at all, period, but particularly with your partner, is your work to do in this lifetime. Because the whole point of this life, developmentally, growth wise, intimacy, all of it is an attempt to occupy the present moment of you in the world and whoever's in it in front of you. That's what we're all at some level building savvy around. And so there's your partner wanting to give you a hug or just be with you for 15 seconds. And if you can't, and I noticed this, my daughter's like, will you just sit with me, mom? And I notice, oh, I want to unpack the dishwasher. Oh, I have to go pick up that garbage on the ground. I can see my little animal go, not sure what to do right now. And then I try to breathe and I go, I'm not going to die. All I have to do is just sit here and let her lie in my arm. And I breathe. And I've never died from surrendering to it. And it's a practice, like going to the gym. You just do one rep more each time.
Yeah. You know, I have a question that I usually ask my guests at the end, and I'm not about to wrap up. I have another big topic I want to bring in, but I'm going to go ahead and ask you now because I deeply believe that intimate relationships are the ultimate vehicle for personal growth. So I'd love to ask you, in the context of your marriage, what have you learned about yourself as a result of being married to your husband?
Oh, well, I felt like up until, and I was a pretty smart woman on my own, but up until meeting my husband, once I met him and I realized the terrain of cognitive knowledge, of emotional mapping, of experience that he'd mapped, once I like bumped into that set of information, I realized that I had been one eye running around looking at reality through one eye. And it was a really great eye with my consciousness. But when you fall in love with the right person, it feels like an, your second eye comes online. And now you can see with two eyes, one in the light, one in the dark. What was dark for me before became illuminated. And now I have two eyes and I can have binocular vision where I can triangulate and see different perspectives. I literally feel like a whole half of reality that I wasn't tracking came online and now I can interact with the whole world. So what does that look like? So many of my cherished truths that I would have staked my life on got upturned. I thought all of reality is one thing, right? I'm part of the world. We're all part of the universe. My natural instinct is to see all of reality as one big thing flowing and fluxing, like the ocean is one big ocean. And then it pipes up in a little wave. Hi, I'm a little wave. And then it goes back into the ocean. So I was like, yeah, it's all ocean. And my husband was like, actually, those are all waves. And I was like, yeah, they're waves, but they're on the ocean. They're still part of the ocean. And what I learned from my husband is it's extremely important to be able to identify as the ocean when I need to feel part of something bigger than myself and to have resource. And it's extremely important for me to be able to pop up out of my family system, out of my marriage, out of this group and be Annie, my little wave, my little individual, unique thing that I'm doing once and for all and never again. And the trick as a human is to be able to be the ocean and be the wave and move dynamically back and forth into individual identity and communal connection to whatever I'm part of, titrated based on the circumstance and the situation, what I need. And I was just like, I'm the ocean. And I was like, no, you don't need to be a wave. You can just do everything as the ocean, but the waves are just as much part of the situation. And so just learning to cultivate my individuality and what I call my selfhood. So when I met my husband, I was sacred guardian of the us, of the relationship. I was empathic. I was always attuned to what would nourish the relationship, what wouldn't. And he was sacred guardian of individuality, autonomy, sovereignty, not just for himself, but for both of us, for all mankind. And I was like, individuality sounds like you want to break up with me. Like that's what I used to think of that. I used to be like, oh, he's just wounded because maybe his family wasn't as loving as mine was. And so he always wants to be separate. And once I realized that actually he was representing a whole other fundamental truth of reality and actually an integral part of being in love. Being in love, I've noticed, mapping it for so long, is equal parts integration, connection, communion, togetherness, and equal parts individuation, separateness, autonomy. It's like a living organism, the relationship. It breathes in together, communion, it breathes out apart. And so a healthy relationship has equal amounts of communion and separation. He was bringing the importance of separation. When he'd ask for alone time, I'd be like, oh my God, that's it. It's over. We can never be together. Alone time means you don't love me. Alone time means you're broken. Now, over 15 years, I'm like, man, I've really learned to love my alone time. And so he's brought that in, this sense of individuality and selfhood. And what I've taught him is how to empathize with another person's perspective, how to attune to other people's feelings, how to guard the relationship. I call that othering, selfing and othering. And these are two skills we need to become proficient in order to do love well. And I think most couples have one partner that's guarding each sacred polarity of communion and together and separation and apart. And our job is to cross train our partners so that we become, if not masterful, at least competent in case, lo and behold, if one parent is lost, both parents are proficient in both aspects of healthy relationship, together and apart. So if my husband, something happened to him, I could teach my daughter how to self, how to have her individuality, but also how to tune into others and track their needs and wants. So she could have proficiency in both.
Yeah, and I know that you're really oriented towards human evolution, as
Yes.
evident in what you've just said. I also think the cross training is essential for individual breadth and self expression, and that, the two of us living, our whole lives together and long lives, that it's still absurdly beneficial to cross train in this way. Like there's so much artistry and delight in doing so. And in a relatively ungraceful segue, let's bring sex in
Yeah, let's
because
do it.
that pertains to everything we've been talking about, even though we haven't mentioned it yet. So, will you
Yeah.
place it on the map?
A lot of people think of sexuality as like one of the branches on the tree. Like, okay, we have our kids, we have our religion, and we have our work, and we have our hobbies, and we have sex. No. So I see the relationship, the man and woman, or the two primary partners, what a heteronormative or otherwise, the
Yeah.
two partners is the trunk of the tree. And then everything else hangs off it like a branch. The trunk of the tree is the relationship. When your relationship isn't working, the whole game, everything else breaks down. And sexuality is part of this relational trunk. So connection involves talking, communicating, spending time together. Sexuality is, I think, one of the main foods of the relationship. So I think of all systems, especially human systems, as having three layers: physical, emotional, social, and cognitive, intellectual. And all three layers need to be nourished and fed. And so I tend to work with my clients, as I have a degree in biology, evolutionary biology. So I do work in the manner in which evolution, the way evolution moves, to me is a good guideline for how to move through a situation. Sexuality is literally how the relationship feeds itself. It's the food. And you can't not eat. You might not feel like eating sometimes, but you need to eat. The relationship needs to eat, just like you have to feed a baby. You might not feel like feeding a baby. Sometimes at 3 a.m., I don't feel like feeding the baby, but I got to feed the baby because I'm committed to the health of that baby. The relationship is like a baby. It's like a child co-parented by both partners. Even if you actually have real children, your first baby before you had any children was your relationship. It's something you created together. And I know a lot of people think like, oh, I'm being metaphorical. I'm not actually. I actually think the relationship has its own character, its own needs and wants, and its living, breathing entity. And I work for the relationship. I don't work for either partner. And if either partner gets in the way of the health of this relationship, I'm going to lovingly reflect it to them in service of an upgrade. So if sex is food for the physical aspect of the relationship, we also need emotional communion, connection, validating each other's experiences and feelings, intellectual connection, sharing ideas. But evolution starts physical, emotional, intellectual. If you look, literally, we came from lizards. Okay. So lizards, all they care about is food and sex and survival. Physical is just survival. And literally, that's how a child is born through sexuality. It's how we all came to be. And then we go through evolution and we get to the monkeys, the tribes of monkeys that have a more sophisticated limbic brain. So not just the amygdala that lizards have. It now has a limbic brain. So the brain evolved from the hindbrain stem. It developed this limbic layer that tracks complex emotions that usually comes from social groups like a chimp troop. And then the most recent layer in the mind is the neocortex. And that's where problem solving, language, higher abstract thought lives. So I like to always move from physical to emotional, then intellectual. So like I'm working with a couple who's in a fight. I want to get both their inner amygdala lizards calm,
Mm-hmm.
safe. Then I want to help them resonate and validate each other's emotions and feel in synchrony there. Then we go to let's solve the problem. Let's do an anatomy of the fight. Let's find out what's going on. Most people skip the first two and they go straight to let's talk about the problem. And it's like, have you ever been able to talk a baby out of crying? No, it has to be soothed.
I call it debating, and it is not the way to resolve much of anything.
No. And it will work if you do the physical safety first, then the emotional resonance, then the cognitive synchron.
Okay, so in terms of the inherent order of attention on the physical, then the emotional, and then the mental cognitive, with conflict, clearly that is the way. When it comes to reviving desire,
Sexual. Yeah.
to nurturing sexual intimacy, do you do it in the same order?
Once you're running in a full-fledged relationship, all three are running at all times. And so you kind of have to dance between them. But just like as a grown woman, if we're hungry and grumpy in the car, no amount of talking and emotional soothing is going to make us feel better. The only way to help us get to the next level is we got to put some food in our mouth, then we feel better, then we won't get into a fight. So I do still use it as a heuristic to guide couples, basically, if I can help a couple upgrade their sexual dynamic by 1 millimeter, I get 100 miles shift in their relationship dance. Like the tiniest early shift I can make in their sexual dance, it has such amplified impact that the ROI is always worth it. Now, not everyone comes to me for sexual issues. They come to me because they're fighting about this or fighting about that. But sexuality is a great litmus test of how the couple is working through their issues, because the first thing to go is sexual connection. If you're holding a grudge or a resent or a frustration, or you feel disempowered in the relationship, my experience is sexual connection almost has nothing to do with turn on or sexual desire. I know everybody thinks that, oh, my partner wants more sex than me. Oh, my partner has a higher sex drive. I don't know if I buy that. I honestly think that whoever is holding the sex back, there's usually one person who would have more sex, or at least they claim so. They want more sex, and the other partner's like, not today, not tonight, I'm not sure, I don't feel like it. Whoever's holding the sex back, usually they feel disempowered in the relationship at large, and they are scanning unconsciously for the only place where they have power to wield it. Now, they don't sit there and go, I'm going to wield power. This is all unconscious. They actually have a headache. They actually feel tired. But who's ever been bored in a conversation and suddenly got sleepy? Psychosomatic thing is always running. And so I'm not trying to blame anyone. I'm just saying, if you're in a relationship where your partner is holding, they're the bottleneck for the sexual connection, try on that there may be an unconscious power payoff from it. And instead of calling them out and go, you're just withholding sex to have power over me, that's not going to work. Can you give them power in some other way so that they can release the death grip on the sexual fire hose? That's one thing, is to rebalance the power dynamics. Now, a lot of people don't want to do that. But power, your partner's going to find power wherever they can if they don't feel like you're two wings on one bird collaborating together. And like two wings on one bird, if one's dominating over the other, the bird will veer into the ground. You need equal dynamic power for a relationship to thrive. So that's one thing.
Okay, and in terms of that power, that's the way you think of it. It's power throughout the relationship, not specifically power within the sexual dynamic,
No,
or
no,
right? Yeah.
no. I'm saying the women that most are like, when I've worked with couples, the women that are, if there's a woman that's like, she doesn't know she's doing this, but she's holding the sex back for all kinds of
Yes.
reasons,
Yes.
usually because she's trying to teach a lesson.
Yes.
She's angry and resentful about something, none of which the partner ever goes. Never has a partner ever been rejected sexually and then thought, oh, it's because I did that thing 5 years ago. Totally makes sense why they're rejecting me. Never. First of all, usually no one ever connects it. No one ever says, the reason I'm holding sex back is because blah, 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 blah. But even if
Yes.
they do say it, it still doesn't change the behavior, because you're literally starving the relationship of its basic food and then asking the relationship to do more, dance. And so you have to feed first. A lot of people withhold sex because they don't feel emotionally connected to their partner. That's not a sexual issue. That's an emotional issue. What you need to do is actually resolve that issue without using sex to resolve it, because it's two different domains. You want to come to your partner, get support, get a therapist, and say, hey, I have all these feelings that don't feel like they're landing for you, or I don't feel completely honored and validated with my emotional experience. Definitely take that up. And that's what I work with my clients on, is getting each of their emotions to be heard as sacred by the other.
Yes. That's a beautiful
And
way to put
that
it.
is what I'm going for. Don't try and use sex to make this conversation more clear, because it never does. It would be like telling a child, you don't clean your room, so I'm not going to give you dinner. You might get the kid to clean their room to get dinner, but you've not produced internal endogenous motivation. You've just threatened and punished. So out of fear of not getting dinner, they clean their room. But as soon as they move out of the house, they've not learned to clean their room. They've just learned to stay out of trouble. And so you have to ask, do you want just sex this one time? Or do you want a long-term systemic upgrade in the whole dance? So there's a lot of ways we can come in on the sexuality. I'm just going to throw different ideas out. So that's one, the power dynamic. I think it was Oscar Wilde who said everything in life is about sex, except sex, which is about
Which is
power.
about power.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's one piece to keep in mind. And I'm saying this also for people who are the withholders of sex. You know who you are. You know, you're like, the idea of sex, just you push it to the side. You don't realize that when you don't create a sexual connection with your partner, you're literally starving the baby. The baby can't last very long if you starve it of food. And I mean, there's obviously special cases, maybe. I'm not suggesting that you have sex against your will. I'm actually saying, can you develop your will to be in service of the relationship's health and longevity? And you claim you're in love with this person, you've chosen them as a partner, and then you're not feeding the relationship physically. And it's not just sexual intercourse, it's physical affection, it's touch, it's all the physical nutrients that make intimacy. So that's one piece, is the piece about power. Second piece is, a lot of time people think that it's their partner's job to turn them on. And it's not. You are responsible for your turn on. And that means always be looking for moments of admiration and appreciation of your partner, not just sexually. If my husband's standing on stage doing a speech and I'm in the audience and I'm just like, oh, I love his manner, I love his audacity, and I'm just like, I admire, whether he's on a phone call or on a stage, or being a father to my daughter and handling a situation with finesse. Whenever I see him doing something that I admire, I take that, I put it in my bank account of moments of my husband being extraordinary. And I'm just loading them up all times. If he happens to walk by the living room and he's wearing a new shirt and it looks really kind of nice on him, to put that in the bank account. And when I need to pull my sexual turn on, I have so much in the bank account that I can withdraw and alchemize into a turn on. It's our job to learn how to find our partner sexy in all circumstances. It's our job. It takes creativity, intentionality, and imagination. But that's what it takes to make a relationship work. And if there are issues in the relationship that have you turned off or repulsed by your partner, then get to work on them. And I don't think starving the relationship of food makes the relationship better at working through those things. Like, a starving child isn't better at cleaning the room. Anyway, that's two angles. I have more to say about it, but I'm see if there's any questions you have.
I'd love to hear one more perspective, and then I want to wrap it up. It's funny, in the context of this conversation, I think my listeners are busy and they're going to get home. And anyway, I could talk with you for hours, but I'm going to resist that. So add one more piece and then we'll wrap up.
Yeah. Don't withhold sex as ransom. That's one thing. And if your partner is withholding sex, for anyone listening, if your partner is always disinterested or tired or sleepy, try on that there's some other heartbreak, pain point, fear, worry, anxiety that is lurking underneath the disinterest in sex. Don't make it about sex. Take every Wednesday afternoon and say, between 4 and 6, we're going to go for a walk. And that special time is where I get to hear what's going on for you. And I'm not going to share anything that's going on with me. I'm just going to, that hour is for you to bring a desire, a want, a need, for me to listen without pushing back or arguing, and to validate your emotions. You'd be surprised how 1 hour every Wednesday will revolutionize your sex life, right? You have to start looking at creative ways to shift the underlying issue, which is the partner is not feeling connected enough to want to open their body to you. And so she's wanting an emotional level of threshold of connection in order to feel physically open. Traditionally, the man's like, I'm ready to go anytime. I don't need to feel emotionally connected. But women tend to feel emotionally connected. But I have a message for both sides. I get you want to feel emotionally connected. I get that. But emotions come secondary to physiology. See if you can just muster up appreciation, esteem, turn on, based on the fact that there are things you love about them. Otherwise, you wouldn't be with them. And withholding sex is just like starving the baby. And so for the other partner, really dig into, where is the withholding partner of the one withholding sex? Where are they feeling disempowered? How can you help them feel higher self-esteem about themselves, about their life? It's hard to feel sexy when you have low self-esteem. When you've had a kid, you haven't joined the workforce, you don't have the same purpose and meaning in your life. The fastest way for a new dad to get laid by the mom is to actually help her build a life that she feels powerful in and that she loves. It seems like it's not connected, but it's very connected. And then the last piece I'll say about sexual dynamic is, most people I've noticed, and I was one of them, use sexual connection to calm their own insecurity and anxiety. And oftentimes, one of the reasons one of the partners pulls out of the sexual connection is because they're feeling used as a pacifier for the other partner, like a baby uses a binky.
Right. Stress relief.
They don't feel like, oh, you love me, you want to commune with me. It's almost like, yeah, anyone, I just need to get the jiggy. I just need to get unstressed. And so the person feels used. It could have been anyone. And so we want to make sure that if you're leading sexual connection with your partner, you are not coming from a compulsive, utilitarian. And the way you know is by how you handle rejection. If your partner doesn't want to connect with you that way, you get angry, you get triggered. If you get angry, triggered, or upset at the person, it means usually that you are needing them to feel better. And what you need to learn how to do is how to regulate your nervous system without using their body. You need to go and work at the gym, go for a walk. You need to become self-sufficient at regulating your anxiety and your stress using your own inner game technology, not using their body. And that's what they're rejecting, not you, but the being used as a pacifier, as a crutch. I said a lot of controversial things, so we'll see how this comes out.
Yeah, I think it's magnificent. And I just want to add that if the last piece you just said really resonates for somebody listening, the thing to do is slow down and focus on pleasure. That is the way to, it may well relieve your stress, but not use your partner to do so. You agree with that?
Yeah, pleasure and just physical affection. So even if you're not feeling open to a sexual intercourse, are you being physically affectionate? Physical affection is a nutrient for the relationship. And it's really important in a long-term committed relationship for you to have a healthy sexual connection. I don't know what the frequency is. My heuristic is like once a week is baseline. And what I suggest people do is you have a date night. Make a date night. The only reason my husband have any time together is every Monday night or every Thursday night. It switches back and forth. Right now it's Thursday nights. It's our date night and we prioritize it. It's in our schedule and we alternate who leads the sexual connection. So that it's never always one. If my husband leads it one time, I lead it the next time. And yeah, it's scheduled. The kids go out of the house. It's all by robotic, algorithm. And at least it gets done because it was not getting done until we had date night. So I encourage a date night. And date night isn't just like we go see a movie. Date night means we got to hit it at some point.
Okay, well, I think we'll wind up there. May all your date nights include hitting it, and not just that you go and eat and get full and have wine and come home and get into bed and fall asleep. That is one kind of date night. If you're not having any date nights, that's better, but that's not going to nourish your relationship in the way
And
that
even
Annie's
if you
been
can't hit
talking
it,
about.
at least spend some moments where you're fully nourishing each other with presence, connection, touch.
Yeah, I really want to add that non-sexual physical touch is such an incredible nutrient that often makes sexual touch and experiences more accessible. But in any case, whether you're listening with your spouse or you're listening on your own, we count on this conversation having opened up some things for you. So Annie, if someone wants to follow you, hear more of your cartography insights, what's the best way to do that?
Well, I'm on Instagram. I'm always posting reels. It's at Lallabird, LALLABIRD. So it has double L in the middle, Lallabird. And you can check out my website, annielalla.com, ANNIELALLA.com. I also teach relationship coaches. I have my own coaching school called Heart Coach, where I teach all of my inner game technology for supporting couples through conflict or helping singles find their soulmate. I'd also do private coaching for select clients who are really committed to doing the work and creating transcendent intimacy.
All right. All that will be in the show notes, and we'll see you next time, or at least I will. Thank you.